Condoleezza Rice is scheduled to give the 2014 commencement address at Rutgers University and receive an honorary degree. The Rutgers Board of Governors unanimously approved the nomination in early February, but not everyone's excited about it, particularly the university's faculty council. They approved a resolution requesting that the university's Board of Governors rescind their invitation to Rice. The resolution was, amongst other things, critical of what they called Rice's prominent role in the Bush administration's effort to mislead the American people about the presence of weapons of mass destruction. They say it's fine to have her speak at other events, but commencement is different because the speaker should, quote, embody moral authority and exemplary citizenship. An honorary Doctor of Laws degree should not honor someone who participated in a political effort to circumvent the law. And they feel that Rice did that as a part of the Bush administration. But is that actually the problem? Fox News' Juan Williams tackled it in an article yesterday and rightly pointed out that Rice is more than qualified for the honor. She was the first African-American woman to serve as the National Security Advisor and Secretary of State. Before that, she was the top professor of political science at Stanford University, and she's teaching there again now. Williams writes, she worked her way up from the working-class family in the segregated South to the highest echelon of world power and politics. But according to the Rutgers Faculty Council, all of that is negated by her service in President George W. Bush's administration. Williams then continued, there is a disgraceful double standard amongst liberals, particularly those in academia, in the hatred they direct at black conservatives. We saw this last April when the conservative neurosurgeon, Dr. Ben Carson, was forced to step down as a commencement speaker for Johns Hopkins University, which you'll remember that is also where he served as the head of the pediatric of neurosurgery. But this is happening to conservatives in general, regardless of their race. Ann Coulter was invited and then uninvited to speak at Fordham University. Bush appointee Robert Zoellick was scheduled to speak at Swarthmore, but was canceled after there was a lot of student opposition. In fact, conservatives rarely seem to speak at commencement ceremonies. In 2012, 71 commencement speakers were identified as liberal or left-leaning. Only 10 were identified as conservative or right-leaning, and 34 were deemed unknown. It seems that conservatives and conservative ideas aren't welcome on college campuses. That academic bias against conservative speakers makes sense now in light of new findings by Pew Research. According to a new poll, young people, the coveted millennials, are more liberal on a breadth of social issues. The majority of them, as we already know, voted for President Obama in 2008 as well as in 2012. The majority of them support same-sex marriage, and they also support legalized marijuana. They're more likely to vote as a Democrat, but they typically don't align themselves formally with either party, and they consider themselves to be independent. So they're more willing than older generations, according to the research, to cross party lines on individual issues. But what we want to know is, does any of this explain the lack of dissenting opinion on campuses across the country, or offer any opportunities to conservatives? So luckily with us today is Kat, who works with campusreform.org, and you guys focus on looking at a lot of biases on campus. So the first question, so I want to go to you first on this, and I'm wondering, do you see this as an issue with universities and university officials, or do you think it is the case of what they're sort of saying in the Pew Research, that students are a bit more left-leaning? Where do you think this kind of falls in? Who's saying we don't want these speakers at our campus?
Well, most young people are socially liberal, gay marriage, legalized marijuana, but on a lot of other issues, a lot of them are more conservative. And being conservative on any issue is often a tough thing on a college campus. We've had students send us videos of professors ranting against Republicans in class. But if you look at, for example, Obamacare, how desperate they are to try to get young people to sign up, and how angry a lot of young people are that the administration is expecting them to pay for this, or that their student health plans have been taken away, it seems as though maybe they're not as liberal as you would think.
Is what's interesting to me here, too, guys, is that there seems to almost be a disconnect between the school officials and then the students and the faculty, because you have students and faculty writing these letters to protest it, but obviously the invitation was initially extended by the university officials. So where do we see that as sort of degrading in between university officials and them actually showing up and speaking? Is that a burden that falls on students, or do you think it falls on teachers?
Well, the university officials, I assume you're talking about people like deans and those who are involved in advancement and trustees. They're not necessarily as politicized, as radicalized as the rest of the campus faculty is. In fact, what you see sometimes are the trustees come back to these schools, like my alma mater, Amherst, and they go, what's going on here? I didn't realize this place was some echo chamber of left-wing lunacy. It's really the professors who enforce that orthodoxy through the tenure track system. It's very easy for them to do. If you don't conform to a left-wing orthodoxy, your career essentially stops short after 3 years as an adjunct professor at most of these colleges. And so it's very easy to make sure that there are no conservative views represented. There were more Marxists on the faculty of my college than there were Republicans.
I got to tell you that.
Officially, by the way.
This is one of the few conversations where I actually feel old at this table. You know, thinking back to college, my commencement speaker was Senator Bob Dole back in 1998, which I was shocked at George Washington University, right there on the ellipse of the South Lawn of the White House. And I was actually, you know, GW is, we're right there in the, you know, the epicenter of politics in Washington. Yet it was a surprise to me that we even got someone like Bob Dole, not quite a conservative, but better than, I think it was, you know, Hillary Clinton or somebody the year before. Thank God I didn't graduate then. But I look at this kind of lack of tolerance, the level of hatred and vitriol that is espoused by the left when you bring any kind of difference of opinion to campus. Like, that's supposed to be where, that's the marketplace of ideas. You're supposed to be free to express those things. And they have conniption fits. To go at, you know, Rutgers, come on, New Jersey, what are you guys doing? To go after Condoleezza Rice like this? She is so accomplished. How dare they go after her like that? It's despicable to me. And it's like, that just goes to show you the level of lunacy of these folks when you have someone as accomplished as her, that they would actually protest and act to rescind her invitation. It's ridiculous. Well,
then we have liberal students who also can't explain why they think what they think.
Right, they
because,
have no
like you
idea.
said, they don't have to.
Yeah.
Their views are never challenged. I went to a college campus at USC back when Obama was talking about going into Syria and asked students, why do you think Obama still deserves his Nobel Peace Prize? And they said, yeah, totally. And I said, why? And they had no idea at all. Or you have this student, this pro-Palestinian student, his arguments for why he believes it sounds like out of cheaters, basically.
Well, do you think that that provides an opening then for conservatives and conservatism on campus? Because we see in this poll that you have a lot of people that are coming into college seemingly not tied to a party. So are conservatives missing an opportunity by not going in there and capitalizing?
No, because like you said, even some of the administration are scared of these liberal professors and wanting to appease them. How do you think a student in a classroom would feel when their grade is on the line? When these professors, a lot of them are very openly saying, I think Republicans are terrible people. I think they're racists, and now I'm going to grade your subjective papers.
I think you have two separate issues. I do think you have to separate these to some extent. There's the liberal indoctrination on the side of the teacher, the professor, the dean, the administration. Buck, you talked about earlier, I believe, that Justice Scalia was rejected as a speaker from your college.
The political science department refused, all the professors refused to attend his speech. He was allowed to come, but this was a sitting Supreme Court justice whose daughter was a student, by the way, and a friend of mine at the time.
I know that Justice Thomas is rejected consistently from coming to speak at colleges. I wrote a column on CNN about a year ago where this is Larry Summers, the Harvard president, who worked for President Obama. He's on the liberal side. He compares conservative professors on campus to the early days of baseball integration. He said, yeah, there are conservative professors, just like there were black players in baseball in the 1950s, but then it's only the stars. You didn't ever find black players that batted .250. They were average hitters. You don't find conservative professors unless they're absolute stars. You don't get to be there unless you are.
There's a higher bar. A higher bar. Conservative has to be a sitting Supreme Court justice, a former vice president, president, and even then,
it's apparently not good enough.
Right. But let me just say this, because there's this side of it and there's the student side of it, and this is going to be much less analytical. But the problem is, liberalism lends itself to platitudes, and platitudes appeal to youth. I feel like I am anti-discrimination, period, full stop, end of sentence. I am for equality, period, end of analysis. Liberalism feeds those shallow platitudes.
But they are intersecting
on
some ideas, like we see here with Condoleezza Rice, where you had students also writing letters saying they'll rescind their invitation if they don't come back. But there's also the issue of ideas as well as commencement looking at. And there was an instance at a university in Ireland, which you'll sort of remember some of the BDS movement, the boycott Israel, coming to academic institutions here in the U.S. And there was an instance where this student was not very pleased about a pro-Israel group speaking on his campus.
Get off my campus now. I've been in this campus for 10 years. Get the off our campus now. Get off our campus. Get the off our campus. 10 years. Get the off our campus now. Get off the campus.
I mean, this was, like you said, this is on TheBlaze.com, but you're seeing that the students as well as teachers, it is all intersecting, and you have a lot of people not even wanting to hear other ideas.
I'm having flashbacks, Allison. I was at meetings just like that, except they were yelling at me, by the way.
But you were standing
I was a conservative ninja. They couldn't handle it.
You know, it's okay to invite Ahmadinejad, you know, to like Columbia, but God forbid you have Ben Carson or Condoleezza Rice speak at your commencement.
Exactly. Well,
hypocrites.
We have to leave it there, but stick around because Misfits are up next.